certified. I am currently sitting on the board of directors for Arizona SHRM GP, and so that's kind of what I'm here to talk with you about today. A little bit about the managing an interview and interviewing practices, and so, and then of course to answer any questions, kind of tell you a little bit of backstory and different tips and tricks to help you in your interviewing needs. So I've been in HR for over 10 years. I've worked in a range of industries ranging from healthcare, manufacturing, education, and then also now staffing. And so very wide range. I would say in the past over 10 years, I've probably interviewed over 1,000 individuals. And so during that time, I've learned a lot of different tips and tricks and ways to conduct in an interview, and then ways to kind of help you in the future to land a job or things that you can control. So that's kind of what I'm here to talk with you guys today. And so I guess we'll start off with kind of a story, so to say. And so I'll kind of share with you things individuals have done that have landed them jobs, and things that individuals have done that have cause them not to get jobs in the interviewing process. And so with us here, we do have a internal recruiter. The internal recruiter will source and find somebody's resume, and then they will conduct a phone interview. And so they'll conduct their phone interview. If they approve, then they'll move them on to the manager. So we'll start with, so say we have had a staff accountant position open here with us. And so it's a very difficult position to fill. It's difficult to find employees that are individuals that have the experience and to fit within the team aspects. And so that's something that's very difficult to find. So I'll tell you a little bit about 3 individuals that we've interviewed recently. So the first one would, I think they all left.
Oh, yeah, I just saw Ebony leave. You can, I'm listening. So if you want to keep going for a couple minutes, if she rejoins, that's great. If not, then we can just circle back.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. I mean, I'll just kind of go over the things like employees can go over to better increase their odds of getting offers and joining companies. And so I guess we'll just cover that. So one thing that I've learned over the past 10 years when you're interviewing individuals, and of course interviewing myself for positions, I've learned to control things that you can control. So the main thing is always when you're working within an organization, if they ask you to complete a task. So a lot of times we have our employees complete applications, or maybe there's a assessment or behavioral assessment that goes along with within the interview process with an organization. And so my recommendation for employees is to always complete that as quick as possible. So if a recruiter or a manager sends you something to complete, like an application or a behavioral assessment, always complete that as soon as possible. That shows that you're engaged and you want to be a part of the organization, and you're taking those initiative steps to join the organization. Another thing is when you do go to the interview, it is always recommended to at least to be 15 minutes early. By being 15 minutes early, it shows that you value the interviewer's time that they're taking out of their day to interview with you, and shows that you're prepared and ready for the interview that day. So that's something that I thoroughly respect, and I know a lot of managers that I've worked with really respect individuals that show up early and prepared. Another thing I always suggest to individuals is dress to impress. So while you may be going to a position, maybe it's an entry-level position where you're working at a desk, or you're doing retail, or construction, you always want to dress to impress. So I always tell people, dress for the job that you want, not the job that you're going for. So a lot of times I've had individuals show up for a accountant position, and which is in a professional setting. They'll show up in jeans and a t-shirt. And so that would not be a professional attire to wear to an interview. By dressing to impress and dressing for the job that you want, it shows them that you took the time and effort to prepare for the interview. So that's something I always recommend to applicants as they're going through the interview process and conducting in-person interviews. Another thing when you are going through the interview process is always to bring copies of your resume with you when you go to the interview. It shows that you're prepared, you're ready to go, and of course, on the off chance maybe the manager didn't have time to print a resume, you have one to provide them. So you're already showing that you're providing a service to them, or you're providing like something that they need. And so that's something that is always recommended to bring. Regarding the resume, one of suggestion I would always have is if you are creating a resume, I always say leave the photos and photos of yourself off the resume, unless you're going for a marketing or something along those lines kind of position, just because you don't want to take bias into that interview process. And so that's something I recommend applicants not doing from their resume aspect. Then once you're in the interview, I always advise employees or candidates to, a few days before or the day before an interview, quiz yourself on, okay, think about stories that may relate to a question. So a lot of times in interviews, interviewers will say, tell me about a time when blank. So they're looking for a story. So they're looking for a story that's going to relate to the question that they're asking. A lot of times in interviews, I will ask them, tell me about a time when you worked with a difficult manager, or tell me about a time when you worked with a difficult project and how did you overcome those hurdles? Think of those type of questions and how you can answer those in your interviews so you can be prepared for it. Because you don't want to get into an interview and you're trying to think and then you go, I don't know. And so that's something that will definitely help you in that interview process. But another kind of tip or trick to do in that interview is if you're thinking of an answer and you're unsure of that answer, you can say, oh, can you repeat that question for me? I want to make sure I understand correctly. So if you ask them to repeat that question, it gives you a little bit more time to kind of figure out your answer and your response. So that's something that I've kind of learned, I've used myself, and it's been really beneficial. Just because then you don't have to think on your feet immediately. You have a little bit of time to kind of catch up. And then the most important thing, this is something that a lot of people, I don't know if it's kind of lost kind of tradition or lost its importance, but I think it's probably one of the most important aspects to an interview and the interviewing like practices as a candidate, is to always follow up after the interview. Once you do the interview, they'll walk you out. They'll say, perfect, we'll give you a call in 24, 48 hours, let you know if you got the position, or we'll follow up one way or the other. But I always recommend to candidates to follow up with an email. So get the interviewer's email address and send them a thank you email. So in that email, you'll thank them for their time for interviewing you. But then I would also say you want to reiterate why you think you would be a good fit for the company and the position. So you're going to take your time and say, hi, I think I'm really great for this position because XYZ, and you would list your qualifications and why you would be a good fit for the position, and then or why you could see yourself in this position. I think that's something that is extremely undervalued, that something that goes a long way with managers, and something that goes a long way with HR individuals also. So I highly recommend that. Just shows that you're engaged and you want to be involved in the process. And it's also a good, like, hey, remember me, I did XYZ, I did this. And so it's something that I've used personally, and it's actually worked out well for me in the past also. So those are a few areas of things that you can control to help you land those positions. And so with that is always be prepared, be ready to go. Don't be afraid to ask somebody to review your resume. Be prepared for those. Tell me about a time when blank interview. So, or during the interview. So that is a very good kind of area of focus you want to be able to control when you're going into those interviewing times with companies. So with that would be kind of our interviewing tips and practices that you would want to go through as a candidate. Guess that was it, Emma. I don't know what else we could cover that we could use.
Well, thank you. The interviewing tips and tricks are always useful, but again, I don't know where Ebony went.
It's all right. I mean,
no, I really appreciate you taking the time out of today and being here. I do apologize that we didn't have more attendees. I know. Oh, here's Ebony. Hi, Ebony.
Ebony, I know you're having a little bit of internet issues, but if you can hear us or anything, do you have any questions for like interviewing or like interviewing practices or anything I could maybe answer for you? I'm not sure how much you may have caught, but if you have any questions regarding interviewing or anything along those lines, please let me know. Or if there's a chat function, feel free to put those in there and I can answer those for you.
Well, Dakota, I actually have a question.
Go for it.
What would you recommend to someone, like say you interviewed with a company and it's been a couple weeks, you've already done your follow-up thank you, and you haven't heard back from them, and they promised, oh, I'll get back to you in a week or 2 weeks. Like, what would you suggest to somebody who's kind of in that waiting stage?
So in that stage, I would always, if there's a recruiter or if there's a manager to contact, maybe reaching out to them personally and saying, hey, just want to let you know it's been a few, or like, hey, it's been a few weeks. Are you guys still hiring? Kind of what's going on, follow-up process. Unfortunately, things that I've seen in the HR industry and recruiting, a lot of companies don't have that courtesy that a lot of us do expect, is to follow up with individuals and give them an answer one way or the other, because they don't like that awkward, like, hey, sorry, you didn't get the job. But I do think that managers and companies should start to embrace that, because you should give people feedback on what they can improve on. I always tell our recruiters, if somebody doesn't get the job, call them and let them know, hey, you didn't get this position, and if it's okay, can I provide you some feedback? And most of the time people say, yeah, can you give me some feedback? How can I improve? That's one thing that it's kind of becoming an industry standard, which I don't agree with, but unfortunately it does happen quite often.
Thank you so much for answering my question, Dakota. And yeah, trust me, before my position at Mentor Cloud, I definitely dealt with getting ghosted.
Yeah, and it's never a good feeling, because, hey, I mean, if there's something I need to improve on, for sure, let me know, and I will do my best to improve on that for the next one. I think that's kind of, some companies may be losing that human connection, which is not great, but sometimes it happens, and it's unfortunate. Losing great talent.
Yeah, no, it is. I think we might have lost Ebony again. Well,
Oh, there we go.
Ebony, do you have any questions? You can, if your internet is really bad, you can just go ahead and type them. If not, it's totally good.
Emma, do you have any other questions? Anything I could help you with? Or any questions?
Well, I'm currently not looking for a job, but if one was to go, I guess I can ask another question. If someone was to go online and look for jobs, what job boards would you recommend over like another? Would you recommend LinkedIn, Indeed, Idealist, Glassdoor?
Yeah, so I always recommend multiple. So, but you use them for different things. So for LinkedIn, you would use that to find a connection within the organization and maybe reach out to them and say, hey, how do you like it? I saw that this position was open and I was kind of interested in applying. Do you have any insight or anything along those lines? That's a great way to get your foot in the door, because then that person could be like, oh, this person's looking, and could send it to the HR. That's one way to utilize LinkedIn. And I think it's a great resource. For simply applying and looking for jobs, I would say Indeed is going to be your best bet, because they are the largest job advertising agency, because they supersede Career Builder, Monster, Jobbing, and things like that. And they also pull from those websites also. So I think Indeed's going to be your best option when you're looking for positions. And then when you're going, another one thing to look at is when you're going to the interview is look up Glassdoor. You can look up reviews and maybe previous salaries and like different info about the organization. While you have to take those things with a grain of salt, because sometimes the reviews that are posted there aren't always great. You have to take those with a grain of salt and kind of look through maybe a previous upset employee and things like that. But you will find some good information within Glassdoor also.
Thanks, Dakota. I appreciate your advice. No, it's definitely, I've had those days going through all the job listings and then reading the Glassdoor reviews, and it's like a major letdown.
Yeah.
So, but thank you again for being here today and presenting. I do really appreciate your time. Ebony, if you have any questions, again, feel free to type them in the chat, but I think we're about to wrap up here. So I'll just give it another minute or two. So yeah. All right, guys. I think it's time to wrap up. So again, thank you so much, Dakota, for your time. Thanks, Ebony, for joining. And I hope you two have a lovely evening. Please stay cool out there. It is very, very toasty, so don't forget to drink water.
Agreed. Well, thank you both. Have a great rest of your day, and thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you so much. Have a good night, guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye.